Lindsay's voice fills the silence, tinged with regret. I remember the moment like it just happened. I don't know what I was thinking. The scene fades into a warm afternoon, a flashback unfolding. Lindsay sits on the couch with her sister Danny, coffee cups in hand, laughter filling the air. Their conversation is lighthearted, casual, just two sisters reminiscing. In the background, Derek enters the room unnoticed, just as Danny playfully asks, "So, if you had a time machine, what would you do differently?" Lindsay smirks, shrugging. Honestly, if I could do it all over again, I wouldn't date Derek. The words land like a sudden blow. Derek freezes, his face unreadable, but the pain flickers in his eyes. He stands there for a moment, silent, letting the weight of her words sink in. Without a sound, he turns and walks away, each step deliberate, his expression carefully masked. The door clicks softly behind him, but Lindsay doesn't notice. She's still laughing with Danny, unaware of the storm she's just set in motion. The room falls into silence. The once warm atmosphere turns cold. The screen fades to black, tension thick in the air. Lindsay sits back, letting out a small, nervous laugh, trying to brush off the weight of what she's just said. He'll be fine. He's just being dramatic, she tells Danny, a forced smile on her face as if convincing herself more than her sister. Danny looks uncertain, but doesn't press further. The evening stretches on, the hum of the house too quiet, too still. Time ticks by. Hours pass without a word from Derek. The silence grows heavier with every minute, but Lindsay convinces herself it's nothing. He'll come around, she thinks. He always does. But then, as the clock strikes midnight, something inside her shifts. The weight of the quiet finally breaks through her casual indifference. She grabs her phone, her thumb hovering over the screen, the uncertainty growing in her chest. She texts him, "You okay?" Her finger lingers, waiting for the usual response. The "I'm fine, babe," just needed a moment, or maybe a joke to lighten the mood. But there's nothing. No text back, no call, just nothing. Her stomach tightens, but she shakes her head, trying to laugh it off again. He's probably just cooling off, she tells herself. I didn't say anything that bad. It's just a little venting. But even as the thought crosses her mind, doubt creeps in. What if she really has gone too far this time? She pushes it away. Derek's always been the calm one, the one who doesn't make a big deal out of things. She's right. He's just overreacting, right? The night drags on, each minute stretching into eternity. She scrolls mindlessly through social media, but her mind keeps circling back to Derek, his silence gnawing at her. The phone stays quiet, and the sinking feeling in her chest only deepens. Still, she refuses to let it break through. It's fine. He'll be back. He has to be. The next morning, the house feels emptier than ever. Lindsay stares at Derek's toothbrush in the bathroom, still in its usual place. His shoes, neatly left by the door, are untouched. The absence of his presence settles like a heavy weight in the pit of her stomach. She feels a pang of unease. How could he still be gone? Maybe it's just another one of his moods. But this time, something feels off. She grabs her phone and dials his number, holding her breath as the ring echoes in her ear. Voicemail. Her heart skips, panic threading its way through her chest. She sends another text, her fingers trembling. Where are you? Can we talk? She hits send, waiting for the familiar buzz of a reply. But again, there's nothing. The silence is deafening. Danny, watching her from across the room, suggests in a quiet voice, "Maybe you should apologize." The words hang in the air, soft and tentative, but they hit Lindsay like a punch. She scoffs, her chest tightening. For what? Being honest? She forces a laugh. but even she knows it's hollow. Guilt creeps in, seeping through the cracks of her defiance. Could she have gone too far? Her mind circles back to the words she'd said, the way Derek's face had fallen when he overheard her. The thought of it makes her stomach churn. By evening, her anxiety has turned to something sharper, an ugly mix of anger and panic. She paces around the house, her phone still in her hand, checking it for the 100th time. How dare he leave me? The thought comes out in a rush, bitter and laced with frustration. But even as she fumes, a new, more unsettling question emerges in the back of her mind. Where is he? The house feels too quiet, the empty space where Derek should be pressing in on her from all sides. She can't shake the feeling that something's wrong, that she might have lost him, and she has no idea where to even start looking. Lindsay's mind races, each passing hour only deepening her sense of dread. Desperately, she calls Derek's mom, hoping for some sign that he's okay, but the conversation only adds to her unease. No, he hasn't called, his mom says, her voice filled with a quiet worry that matches Lindsay's own. Is everything all right with you two? Lindsay doesn't know how to answer. Her mind is clouded with too many conflicting emotions, anger, guilt, and fear, and she can't even begin to explain the weight of it all. She hangs up, feeling more alone than ever. Her next move is to call Derek's friends. Maybe one of them knows where he's gone, but each call ends the same: empty, frustrating, and cold. No one's heard from him. No one knows where he is. Her heart pounds as panic creeps in, tightening around her chest. What's going on? Is he really gone? Or is he just trying to teach her some sort of lesson? Either way, Lindsay can't shake the feeling that she's losing control. In a burst of determination, she decides to check their bank transactions, hoping for any clue that might give her a lead. When she scrolls through the recent charges, her eyes freeze on a hotel charge. Her breath catches. He's at a hotel. She doesn't even hesitate. Grabbing her coat, she rushes out the door, her mind set on finding him, on confronting him, and on making things right. The car ride feels endless, her nerves fraying more with each passing minute. She finally arrives, her heart racing as she steps into the hotel lobby. The front desk clerk greets her, but when Lindsay asks about Derek, the clerk just shakes his head, a polite but firm refusal to offer any information. She presses further, but the clerk stands his ground, citing privacy policies. Anger boils up in Lindsay's chest, frustration building to a breaking point. She slams her palm against the counter in frustration, muttering under her breath, "This is ridiculous." Feeling desperate, she pulls out her phone and types a text to Derek. Her fingers move quickly, fueled by a mix of rage and hurt. "I know where you are. Stop being childish and come home." But as she reads over the message, her heart sinks. She knows this isn't the right way to reach him. The words sound harsh, accusatory, nothing like what she wants to say. Slowly, she watches her finger hover over the screen. The anger in her subsides just a little, replaced by the creeping realization that Derek is serious this time. He's not playing games. This isn't something that can be solved by just making him come home. She deletes the message, her fingers trembling slightly. Lindsay knows deep down that this time she can't fix it with just words. Something's broken, and she's not sure if it can ever be mended. The days drag on like a weight Lindsay can't shake. The house, once filled with the sounds of laughter and everyday noise, now feels suffocatingly empty. She moves through the rooms, her footsteps echoing on the hardwood floor, but it feels like she's walking through someone else's life. Every corner holds a reminder of Derek, his clothes still draped over the chair, his favorite coffee mug sitting on the counter, untouched. Time seems to slow down, stretching out the silence between them, and Lindsay's frustration begins to grow into something darker. The house is silent, too silent. She's become almost numb to it, and yet every hour without him feels like a blow to the chest. And then, one afternoon, the door opens. The sound of it creaking on its hinges breaks the silence, and Lindsay's head snaps up. There he is, Derek, standing in the doorway, looking calm, unreadable. He's back. The knot in her stomach tightens, a mixture of relief and anger bubbling to the surface. Without thinking, she stands up abruptly, her voice cracking with frustration as she demands, "Are you going to explain why you ghosted me for 2 days?" The words feel sharp in the air, but they don't have the same effect she thought they would. Derek doesn't flinch. He just steps inside, closes the door behind him, and says, "We need to talk." Lindsay's chest tightens. The tension between them is thick, like something snapping at the seams. She opens her mouth to argue, to make him understand how wrong he is, but something in his demeanor stops her. He's not angry. He's not pleading. He's just calm. Too calm. The more he stands there, unwavering, the more her mind races, trying to latch on to something to defend herself. "What's there to talk about?" she snaps, but Derek doesn't back down. His eyes lock onto hers, his voice steady, but full of quiet conviction. "Lindsay, you don't see what you have. I've always been here, and you've always treated me like I wasn't enough." The words hit her like a slap. Her first instinct is to laugh it off, to brush it off as him being overly sensitive. But something inside her shifts. Derek's calm honesty is like a mirror, reflecting back a version of herself she didn't want to face. She tries to dismiss it, to pretend like it's no big deal, but his words keep echoing in her head. "I wasn't enough." The phrase circles around her, digging into her like a splinter she can't pull out. It's not just what he said, it's the way he said it. The quiet hurt that lingers in his voice. For the first time, she realizes that maybe, just maybe, he's right. That maybe she has been taking him for granted. And that thought shakes her more than anything else. Derek begins packing his things in silence, each movement deliberate and final. His clothes, the ones she once tossed carelessly on the floor or left crumpled in the laundry, now folded neatly in his bag, a stark contrast to the chaos in Lindsay's mind. The sound of zippers and fabric moving fills the room, but it's all too quiet, too heavy. Lindsay watches him, helpless, every instinct screaming at her to stop him, to do something, anything to make him stay. She can't believe this is happening. Not now, not like this. She was supposed to be the one in control, the one who didn't need anyone. But now, in this moment, as she watches him pack, she feels every second of her mistake weighing down on her chest. "Derek, please," she says, her voice trembling. "We can fix this. I can change. I'll change. I swear. Just don't leave. I'll do better. I promise." There's desperation in her eyes now, a kind of raw vulnerability that she's never shown him before. She's always been the one who had it together, who knew exactly what to say and when to say it. But this time, the words feel hollow, like they don't belong to her. She's pleading, and for the first time, it's not because she's right. It's because she's afraid. Afraid of losing him. Afraid of facing the reality of her actions. Derek doesn't look up as he continues to pack, his hands moving with precision, but there's a sadness in his posture now, a resignation that wasn't there before. Finally, he stops, zipping up his bag and looking at her. His expression is unreadable, but there's a quiet strength in his eyes. "I hope you do," he says, his voice soft but firm. "But not for me. I deserve better." His words hang in the air between them, heavier than anything she's ever felt. Her heart drops into her stomach, and she can't find the words to argue, to make him see things her way. She wants to scream, to tell him that she didn't mean it, that she was wrong. But it's too late. He's already made up his mind. Without another word, Derek walks past her, his steps steady and final. Lindsay watches him go, her heart pounding in her chest. She opens her mouth to call after him, but no sound comes out. The door closes behind him with a finality that feels like a physical blow. She stands there, motionless, staring at the empty doorway as the realization settles over her. He's really gone. For the first time, Lindsay is truly alone. And it's not just because Derek left the house. It's because she knows deep down that she's lost him. That the one person who ever really saw her for who she was, who loved her despite everything, is walking out of her life for good. And as the silence settles in around her, Lindsay is left to face the wreckage of her own choices, with nothing but the crushing weight of regret and the absence of Derek's presence to remind her of everything she's lost. Lindsay's voiceover cuts through the silence, her words heavy with regret. I thought he'd come back, that he'd forgive me like always. But this time, I pushed too far. Her voice trembles, a mixture of disbelief and sorrow, as the camera slowly fades to the image of Derek walking away from her life, his back turned, his strides confident and free for the first time in a long while. The weight of his departure isn't just in his absence, it's in the way he walks, unburdened, as though he's finally broken free from the chains of her neglect. In that moment, Lindsay understands the truth she's been avoiding. He's not coming back this time. And the realization cuts deeper than anything she's ever felt. As Derek disappears into the distance, the camera lingers on Lindsay's face, her eyes vacant, as though she's already mourning what she's lost. A gentle but poignant reminder flickers on screen, echoing the lesson that's been a long time coming. Appreciate your loved ones before it's too late. Respect in a relationship goes both ways. It's a truth that Lindsay is left to grapple with, knowing she missed her chance to cherish Derek while she had him. The screen fades to black, but the words linger, impossible to ignore. The final line rings out, leaving a lasting impression. Love isn't about finding the perfect person. It's about valuing the one who chooses to stay. And as the credits roll, it's clear. Lindsay's lesson isn't just about love. It's about understanding what it truly means to deserve someone's love, and how easily it can slip through your fingers when you take it for granted.